Good evening. Welcome to Lebanon City Board of Zoning Appeals, Monday, June the 5th. Could we have roll call, please?
Okay, Corey Coots.
Here.
Chad Kiger.
Here.
Bruce Polly.
Here.
Ron Edwards.
Here.
And Lori Gross.
Here.
Okay, we have everybody here. The minutes from last month, if there's any questions, bring them up. If not, entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, for you guys just walked in, the meeting that has to do with the youth soccer has been postponed for 1 month. So you're welcome to stay, welcome to go, whatever. I just wanted to make that announcement before we started. We'll have our old business first, and this is from last month, docket number 2332, Robert and Tracy Tarman for 6T Holdings LLC requesting a conditional use and approval to operate a boarding house located at 211 East Washington Street here in Lebanon. Property is zoned central business. Matt.
Good evening, Board. We do have a full agenda tonight, so I'll try to go through things quickly, but I'll make sure we hit all the pertinent details. But if I go too fast, if you have any questions, please slow me down, but just want to be able to get through this in an efficient manner. So what's before you tonight, the same application that was before you last month that was continued. The applicant's the owner of the properties at 211 East Washington Street. If we can go ahead and pull up our screen here, refresh where we're at. East Washington Street on the north, Northeast Street along the west side. This is the parsonage home of the former Baptist church that's just to the east side of downtown. The applicant has requested a conditional use to use the parsonage as a boarding house. The definition of boarding house is defined by our UDO as an establishment offering rooms for rent where meals are regularly served from a single kitchen, not open to the general public, for compensation for 3 or more persons, but not exceeding 12 persons. Boarding houses do not include bed and breakfast, multifamily dwellings, hotels, or motels. So I just want to get that out there as far as the definition of boarding houses. They are considered a conditional use within the central business zoning district, which this property falls into. Boarding houses are a conditional use in all of our commercial districts. So any applicant or any time a conditional use is requested, it comes before you for your review, and then if approved, any conditions could be applied to that particular use. So tonight before you, the applicant is proposing a boarding house to serve 4 tenants in what is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home. As we go through the statutory criteria, and as a reminder, the statutory criteria are what we are, or you as a board are required to evaluate in order whether to approve or deny a conditional use request. So as we go through the statutory criteria, and again, we did this last month, but I just wanted to touch on a few things, and then we do have some information, some follow-up. There were questions from last month that we did get some answers to. But the first evaluation criteria is that the proposed use is listed as a conditional use for a particular zoning district. And as we have already identified, the land use matrix in the UDO section 4.2 requires a conditional use application for boarding houses within the central business zoning district. The second criteria is that the established maintenance or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. The applicant's proposal for a boarding house will not be detrimental to the public health, morals, general welfare of the community. The 4-bedroom, 2-bath home has adequate facilities for the proposed applicant, or for the that are proposed by the applicant, sorry. The conditional use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the other properties in the immediate vicinity for lawfully permitted uses, nor substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood or zoning district. The applicant's proposed boarding house will not impair the use or enjoyment of the other properties in the immediate vicinity, nor will the property values be substantially diminished in the neighborhood or the zoning district. The subject property is bordered, let me go to the next slide here. The subject property here in yellow is bordered to the west by the church, to the north by the bank, to the northeast by the Child Advocacy Center, and then the rest of the block is a mixture of single-family and multifamily dwellings. So the subject property, or the proposed boarding house would seem to fit with a variety of commercial and residential uses that are already in the area. One point of note, it is not the intent of staff to set a precedent that creates a scenario where there's a rush to transition all residential structures within the central business zoning district into boarding houses, nor does staff believe there's any interest in doing so. I'm reading this because I want to, Ben, my director of the planning, want to make sure that this got crossed. The intention is to evaluate each application on its own merits and to ensure the proposal does not have negative impact on surrounding properties. In this case, because the block has a mix of commercial, multifamily, and single-family residential uses, and the proposal involves a single-family structure, staff wants to ensure the boarding house does not substantially alter how the single-family residential structure itself would be used and the intensity of that use. Any potential future applications for a similar use type would require a similar evaluation. So that's to say that any potential future boarding house conditional use application would come before staff for review, that would also come back to you for your approval. So as far as setting a precedent, again, these are reviewed on a case-by-case basis. So approving one does not mean you're approving all others. It's simply on a case-by-case basis and within the central business zoning district that we're referring to. The fourth criteria, the establishment of the conditional use will not impede or substantially alter the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for the uses permitted in that zoning district. The applicant's not proposing to make any exterior modifications to the single-family residential structure that would impact the surrounding uses. In addition, in order to maintain the single-family nature of the structure, staff is recommending limiting the four-bedroom home to no more than 4 boarding house units and no more than 4 tenants or 1 tenant per unit within that structure. The fifth criteria, adequate utilities, access road, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or will be provided. This is in the middle of our central business district, and all required utilities and transportation infrastructure are already provided to the site. And the final criteria, the proposed use will not conflict with the goals of the comprehensive plan or the unified development ordinance. The proposed use is not in conflict with either the comp plan or the UDO. The comprehensive plan identifies this area as appropriate for commercial uses. One last thing I wanted to touch on, one of the questions I believe Mr. Coots brought up at our last meeting was regarding fire code requirements for this particular use. Boarding houses are considered a commercial use or a commercial property, and the requirements, the details provided to us from the Lebanon Fire Department. Again, I'll read these so I make sure that I get all the details. Each tenant must have a clear, unimpeded path to an exit. This doesn't mean that each room has to have its own exit, just a clear path to one. There needs to be at least 2 exits in the house. All exits must have exit and emergency lighting with battery backup. There needs to be, these also need to be hardwired. There needs to be a minimum of 2 5-pound ABC fire extinguishers. There will have to be, these fire extinguishers will have to be checked and tagged by a professional company on an annual basis. Each tenant must have a working egress window in each sleeping room, so each bedroom must have a window for egress. Lebanon Fire Department will perform yearly inspections. And then the exits that are on the property, the at least 2 exits, need to be on the ground level with a solid surface and an exterior light. These requirements have been passed along to the applicant, and I believe the applicant has agreed to meet these standards. So in review of the application of the requested conditional use for allowance of a boarding house use in the central business zoning district, Lebanon Planning staff recommends approval to approval subject to the following 2 conditions. 1, that the applicant maintain the single-family character on the exterior of the home, and 2, that the boarding house use is limited to 4 units and no more than 4 total residents on the subject property. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
You want to add to this, about the fire department requirements?
That could be a condition that you add on there, but because it is a commercial use, it automatically requires those. But if you'd like to get it on the record and add it as a condition, that's entirely up to this board.
Okay. Any other questions for? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
The applicant care to step forward and address the board?
Hello, Tracy Trainum. You have questions? I know we went over stuff last week or last month. We already have 2 ladies that have moved in, and anybody that's walked by the property can see that it already looks better than what it did on the outside that we've taken care of. We've remodeled the inside. So we've actually talked to the fire marshal. He came down. Since we own also the church, he said it'd be real simple. When he walks through the building for the church, he also walks through the transition home and checks both of them to make sure they all meet code. We have not done those things because we're waiting to get approval, because if you don't approve, then we still have 3 ladies there and we don't have to do all those things.
Questions? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a public meeting, and anybody from the audience, we'll open it for the audience. If anybody has anything they want to add or questions they want to ask, please step forward. Open as a public hearing.
My name is Missy Krulik. I live at 303 East Washington Street, which is 3 houses down from this residence. I am still against boarding houses. I don't feel that that should be a conditional use that we want to open up in this community, especially in the central business district that I work a lot in. I know that we have a lot of absentee landlords in the area, and I feel like even though you review it on a case-by-case basis, what are you looking at when you review it on a case-by-case basis? And what is your criteria? Do you know that that person who owns that building is an absentee landlord? We know that just by history, buildings that constantly have people coming in and out weekly, I know we have some weekly rentals in our downtown, monthly rentals. It just doesn't, the property isn't maintained. It does nothing to raise or maintain property values for the other properties around that. So I am against opening that conditional use of boarding houses. We don't currently have that in Lebanon. So I just feel like once you open up that can of worms, you've opened it. And then also, I guess that's all. Like, I'm concerned for my neighborhood if you open that conditional use. I know we have some other homes in our immediate neighborhood, in our block, that if you did this, that could potentially be something that maybe those owners might look into. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we will close the public end of the hearing. Does the board have any questions for the tenant or the city?
I want to ask Matt something just to clarify.
Sure.
Okay, what we're voting on tonight, a conditional use for 4 people in the home, correct? But they don't necessarily have to go before any committee to have 3
That
in
is-
the home, correct?
That is correct. By definition, in our UDO, a single-family dwelling can have up to 3 unrelated individuals living in the home, so that they could, by right, have up to 3 tenants in the home without requiring a conditional use or approval from any public board. So what the request is tonight is for one additional person to be living in the four-bedroom home.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
No further questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use to operate the boarding house with the two conditions lined out to maintain the structure as residential and to only allow 4 people.
I'll second.
Okay, Kelly?
Corey Coots,
No.
Chad Kiger,
Aye.
Bruce Polly,
Aye.
Ron Edwards,
Aye.
Lori Gross.
Aye.
Carries. Congratulations. Okay, the next item tonight is docket 2333, Brianna Culley. The property is located at 1315 Lafayette Avenue here in town. The property is zoned multifamily residential and is within the thoroughfare overlay district, comprised of approximately 4.59 acres. Matt?
All right. So we're moving to the northwest side of town here. If we want to pull up the site map, we'll get you oriented to where we are. Lafayette Avenue is along the east side. The property marked in yellow is currently the Pratt Storage Facility that sits directly to the north of the City of Lebanon Street Department garage. The application before you tonight is a use variance to allow a beauty salon or a hair salon to be located within the current office space for Pratt's Garage. So this building here, let me zoom in a little bit for you here. The office building for the storage garage does have some vacant space, and the applicant is proposing to install a 2-seat hair salon that would operate during normal business hours with the potential for evening and weekend appointments as necessary. Hair salons are not a permitted use within the multifamily zoning district. Therefore, planning staff determined that a variance of use application was required. So as part of the variance of use application, as with all applications that are before you, we have statutory criteria that we need to review, and I'll kind of walk through each of those. The first, the variance of use to permit a hair salon on the subject property will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. This building, the red roof building on the screen, is sized appropriately for the current use as an office space for the storage facility, as well as for the proposed use of the hair salon. Has all the necessary off-street parking that's required for both of those uses, and will not cause any adverse effects to adjacent properties. Second criteria is the requested use would not impact the use or value of the area adjacent to the property in a substantially adverse manner. The proposed use of the property is consistent with the mixed-use character of the adjacent area, which consists of other small businesses, single-family homes, and as I previously mentioned, the Lebanon Street Department garage. The property is currently zoned for multifamily uses. However, the surrounding neighborhood and even that Lafayette Avenue corridor contains a mix of single-family and commercial uses. The applicant's request would allow a use on the property similar to other uses along that Lafayette Avenue corridor, which range from automotive repair shops, the Pizza King, a restaurant that's currently under construction, a packaging company, and social clubs that are along that Lafayette Avenue corridor. The property is currently a commercial use, a self-storage facility, and is a legally existing non-conforming use because it is a multifamily zoning district. Requiring the subject property to meet the standards of the ordinance would require only residential uses to be allowed within the existing commercial buildings. The proposed use is more in line with the commercial nature of the existing property as it is. And then lastly, the City of Lebanon Comprehensive Plan does designate this property for residential uses. However, as I mentioned, that Lafayette Avenue corridor from Main Street all the way up to I-65 has long contained a mix of single-family, multifamily, and commercial uses. The applicant's proposal does not interfere substantially with this land use designation. So with that, the City of Lebanon Planning staff does recommend approval of the variance of use request to permit a hair salon within the multifamily residential zoning district, subject to the following 2 conditions. One, that the approval of the variance of use is limited to the hair salon use proposed by the applicant. Any change in use or any increase in the intensity of the use by the current or any subsequent owners will require approval by the City of Lebanon Board of Zoning Appeals. And the second condition is that the applicant submits a signage plan for any proposed signs to be installed and receive permits prior to the installation of those signs. Happy to answer any questions about this use of variance application.
Did you say the storage facility is a legal non-conforming, so they have a conditional use variance on that?
They do not. No, it's a legally existing, so the storage facility preceded the Unified Development Ordinance, so it was there prior to our restrictions of zoning it multifamily and those standards that come with a multifamily zoning district. So that's what creates a legally existing status, but it is non-conforming based on.
In other words, it's grandfathered in, basically?
Technically, yes.
Okay. And is there an effort to basically bring those grandfathered in businesses, like I think we have Pixie up on the agenda tonight as well, that's been in Lebanon for a long time, and they're wanting to get their non-conforming status to conforming. Is there an effort to do that with the storage facility as well, and should that be done before any new business is before this board on that same parcel?
In relation to this, so the overall question is, no, there's no steps for an overall rezoning of spot zoning throughout the city on any legally existing non-conforming properties. If there is an application for a development plan or a change of use on any of these non-conforming properties, it would require a variance of use, a use variance or a conditional use application. So there would, or a rezone. So if the storage facility decides to leave and ABC company wants to build a factory here, that would require development plan review. If that was necessary, a rezone, a conditional use, or a use variance would be required. So it's on a parcel-by-parcel basis. Because the storage facility is, as you mentioned, grandfathered in, legally existing, there would be no reason for it to undergo a rezone unless that storage use
This new
would.
business, because it's in the same building, doesn't trigger something with the storage?
Correct. The primary use on the property is the storage facility. The hair salon would be a secondary use. So the primary is what takes precedence when referring to zoning. This is a secondary use on the same parcel, so they're just getting a conditional use application, or conditional use approval to use a portion of the building.
Thank you.
I know you've already looked at this, but do you have adequate parking and is it marked?
Yes, there is parking along the northeastern portion of the building, if we can pull the map back up. And I believe the applicant, if I, bear with me one moment, let me jump back a screen and,
How many is required, do you know, Matt?
for a hair salon, it's one per seat, one parking spot per seat, and then one per employee on the largest shift. This one's kind of hard to see here on the map. On my screen it's not, or it is, on yours it's not. As you can see, there are multiple parking spaces that are proposed along the northeast side of the existing building. So what I'm highlighting here is the red roofed building from the previous screen. And they are indicating just a traffic plan of being able to have in and out traffic flow. It is wide enough of a drive aisle to have two-way traffic, should there be people leaving the storage facility or entering storage and exiting the hair salon.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Welcome.
Is Brianna, would she step forward and? While they're coming up, you know, anybody that cares to speak tonight, we need you to please sign in.
Okay. Hello, I'm Brianna Coley. This is my grandpa, Ted Pratt, the owner of Pratt Storage. And we are here to propose the hair salon. He offered this to me about 6 months ago, and we thought this would be a great addition to the town.
We did have the state okay our facility for a salon. So we went to the state and talked with them and give them everything they required.
That's all come back?
Yes, it has.
Yes, Christie got that.
Okay.
Just to confirm, the parking would actually be directly next to the building, correct? Kind of in front of it versus those 10 for the truck rental off of that screen. Can we maybe pull up either one?
The
Oh, it's
parking,
okay.
So the parking for the salon will be before the gate, I guess is the best way to put it,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Because the gate would be kind of at the end of the building, right, as I recall it?
Yes.
So kind of by those arrows that come together.
So it would be,
right here, there's the building, so the parking's up here.
so there are 6 right here.
Yep.
There's 6.
6,
parking.
yeah, so there's 6 spots right here. So that would be enough for,
And
Yeah,
then we have.
and then,
somewhere
there's going to be
3
additional
at least
available
3
there, correct?
yes, yeah. So there would be
okay.
10.
I just wanted to make sure they were before the gate for the storage.
yeah.
Because I think the 10 for the trucks is behind the gate, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
What'd you say?
And is this a separate business from the storage or a secondary part of are you the owner of the salon?
Yes, I am the owner of the
Okay.
salon. This is the Pratt Storage owner. Completely separate, everything.
Sharing a building but separate
Yes.
businesses?
Yep, so he is,
Got your own insurance?
exactly, my own insurance, my own everything.
They've met, though.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, you can go ahead and sit down if you want to. Once again, this is a public meeting. Does anybody from the public care to ask questions? It's open to public hearing. Okay, we will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance of use request to permit a hair salon in the multi-family residential zoning classification, with the 2 following conditions: that the approval of the variance of use is limited to the hair salon use proposed by the applicant, and that the applicant submits a signage plan for any proposed signs to be installed and receive sign permits prior to installation.
I'll second.
Okay. Kelly?
Corey Coots,
Yes.
Chad Kiger,
Yes.
Bruce Polly,
Yes.
Ron Edwards,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations. Good luck. Next item on the docket is 2334, the Lebanon Church of Christ. Property is located at 1204 Indianapolis Avenue, Lebanon. Property is zoned planned business commercial, located within the thoroughfare overlay district, and is comprised of approximately 5.65 acres. The lot size is 240 feet wide, 1,041 feet deep. Matt?
All right, moving to the other side of town now. We're on the southeast side. If we pull up our site plan here, we're off of Indianapolis Avenue. This is the Lebanon Church of Christ, just north of the old Economy Building, across the street from Boone REMC in that area. The applicant tonight is proposing to build an accessory structure, a storage barn on the site, and their size is a bit bigger than what the UDO allows. So the Unified Development Ordinance specifies that accessory structures shall be a maximum of 15% of the area of the principal structure on any commercial property. According to the site survey, the existing church here on the property is 4,356 square feet, which would permit an accessory structure of a maximum of 653 feet. The applicant is requesting relief from this requirement to construct a proposed approximately 1,400 square foot storage structure. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So we can see, we are on a 6-acre lot, or we'll say we are looking at a 6-acre lot with the existing church here in the front and the playground just to the north. Where the playground is currently situated is where the applicant is proposing to build the storage barn, right up in the front. As I mentioned, approximately 1,400, or to be exact, 1,392 square feet. They would then also relocate the playground back here by the shelter house and the garden that they have towards the rear of the property. So the storage barn would be towards the north, but behind the frontage of the church, so it would not be closer to Indianapolis Avenue than the front of the church currently is. In review of the statutory criteria, the increase in the size of the accessory structure poses no imminent threat to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. The structure will meet all the necessary side setbacks, front setbacks, rear setbacks, and it's also consistent with other properties in the area that contain accessory structures that do not meet the size requirements of the UDO. I'm going to zoom back out a little bit here, and we can see some properties, some residential properties along the north side that have accessory structures that do exceed the maximum allowable square footage, and then as we scroll just a little bit off the screen, there's accessory structures on the commercial properties to the south off Hendricks Drive that also do not meet the standards. So this particular request does not threaten that public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. The requested variance would not affect the use and value of the area adjacent to the property in a substantially adverse manner. The requested variance is compatible, again, with existing structures and properties, both residential and commercial, within this neighborhood. And the last criteria, the strict application of the terms of the UDO would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. The UDO does not take into consideration the size of a property or areas where larger accessory structures or barns might be more appropriate. The development precedents have been set by neighboring properties, include structures that are similarly sized to what's being requested by the applicant tonight. And the strict application of the terms of the UDO would require the accessory structure to meet standards that were designed for a more urban setting versus the property here where we're talking about nearly 6 acres on the subject property. So it would create an undue hardship on this particular property. After review of the statutory criteria in the application, the City of Lebanon Planning staff recommends approval of the variance request to permit relief from the maximum accessory structure area to allow construction of an accessory structure that is 1,392 square feet. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What's the existing structure's exterior? Is it a brick?
The church is brick structure.
So does this accessory structure have to meet any match the church, or?
It does not. The primary structure is what is determined with the design standards. So the accessory structure would be built, doesn't need to meet the design standards that the church had to meet or would have to meet if it were rebuilt.
Even if it's got frontage?
Correct. As an accessory structure, it does not.
Speaking of frontage, Matt, what does our UDO say about accessory structures and frontage along Indianapolis Avenue in that zone?
Technically, it wouldn't be in the frontage, so the accessory structure will sit behind the front of the church, so technically it would be in the rear yard, the rear and side yard. So the standards, the development standards would apply to the church because it is the primary structure on the property. The accessory structure, again, is an accessory storage barn versus the primary structure, which is the church.
Bring that last screen, the plot plan back up.
Sure. Well, I can't, but I bet they can in the back.
So it's going to go where the playground is, correct?
Correct. It'd be approximately here in this, and I can't highlight the area, but let me go to the next screen and,
So well, the east elevation is not considered frontage?
It's set back 1+ feet from the front, so it's not considered, it's technically side yard.
That's correct. So I'm trying to slide this over. This was a drawing submitted by the applicant. It's reversed, so north is to the south, or, I'm sorry, north is to the bottom of this page. So you can see Indianapolis Avenue would be off to the left, the existing church. The proposed structure is to the north, where the playground is. The playground would be relocated to the rear of the property.
Any other questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would the applicant care to step forward? Yes, please. Just tell
I
us a
don't-
little bit about it.
I'm sorry?
Just tell us a little bit about it, your name and so
Oh, okay, my name's Marvin Hayden. I'm a deacon out there in charge of building and grounds. And we just need some more room. And something was brought up about the exterior of the building. It'll match the shelter house, which is in the west of the west church across the parking lot. And we just have lots of uses for it, you know.
strictly storage, right?
Primarily, that's how it started out. And then at church, they always say, well, we could do this there, we could do this there. But primarily, that was our primary goal to start with.
Okay.
I'm curious to know what led to the decision of that particular location. With all that space you have available to the west, to the rear of the property.
Oh, it's so much farther away, and right behind the shelter house is what we call the garden, and the professional gardeners use that
Okay.
facility.
Right.
And it's a long way from the building, you know, the church building.
Other questions?
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. I will open it to the public if anybody cares to address it. We will close the public end of the hearing. No further questions or motion?
Make a motion to approve docket 23-34 as written.
Second.
Kelly?
Corey Coots,
No.
Chad Kiger,
No.
Bruce Polly,
No.
Ron Edwards,
Aye.
Lori Gross.
Aye.
Okay, this motion did not pass.
Board, could I ask for some feedback for the applicant on what they could do to,
Absolutely. Is there any other, you want to come up to the mic? I think I'm speaking for myself, but just the location and the size of the structure was basically my thoughts on saying no. Is there anything else that you could do?
With the structure?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have my mind slips away from me, but we have a little school there, and I wish I could remember the name of it.
The Montessori school?
Yes, in our church, we have a Montessori school, and there would be uses for that, you know, there'd be uses for that tied to the school too. We're trying to grow our church, and make things available and appealing to prospective members. And so we're trying to be community-friendly. And right now, we're trying to put good little people out the front door. They range from ages 4 to 3rd grade, and all of our teachers are licensed. And so, like I said, it started out just primarily as a storage, and the more we talk about it, the more different changes, more uses they come up for it, and we have every Sunday the school lady has to. There's 4 teachers there, and they have to kind of rearrange the church every Sunday for a church service. And then on Monday they rearrange the church for the school uses.
So, I think, and Bruce, you mentioned it, and for me personally too, I'm not even necessarily opposed to the structure. I think what would really help would be possibly a rendering of the structure, like an actual design of it.
Oh, okay.
And my biggest concern is, under the ordinance, technically everything is run off of the church. So yes, this is considered a side yard or a rear yard, but the reality is it faces our thoroughfare. So when you look at the backside of a shed, is what I have in my mind, would be just like a sheet metal, right? So if we had a way to visually see, maybe it looks like the actual front of the building, we all know it's going to be the back of it for the way it's used, but from the roadside, it would look like a frontage. So I think that an actual rendering would really help us.
Okay.
That's my biggest thing.
Pretty much agree. I think the next step is get back with Matt and Ben, and they'll work with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm personally not opposed to size or anything like that. I just want to make sure from the street front, it's gonna look like it should go there, I guess is the best way to put that. And it has a curb appeal, if you will.
Right.
So that's my bigger concern personally.
Currently, the design is they'd have I think they're designed to have 2 3x4 windows on the east end, and then 2 in the back and 2 in the front. But I can get that for you, whatever you want.
Get with Matt and Ben on that, and
Okay.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay, just so he's clear, because I've heard 2 things. You're okay with the location. You're not looking to relocate it. Because that's what I heard first.
I'm personally not, I didn't.
Okay, that's what I heard first of all. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure. They just want to see the design.
Okay.
But
Yeah, so there is a question on location, would be kind of some other question up here. But if we had a rendering, the location, we may be able to work with, I guess is the best way to put that.
Okay.
But if you had a different location that might make sense, you may consider that as well, given the feedback from the board.
Oh, I'll see what I can do. Okay?
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, docket number 2338, applicant Thomas Whitsitt for the Pixie Playhouse. Location of the property is 924 South Meridian Street, Lebanon. The property is approximately .33 acres and is multifamily residential.
Very good. Again, conditional use before you again tonight. The applicant, as you mentioned, is Pixie Playhouse Daycare Center. The daycare center has been owned and operated by Pixie for nearly 50 years on the subject site. If we pull up the site plan, pretty sure if you live in Lebanon, you've been by Pixie, but just so you know, we're on South Meridian Street, just east of State Road 39, just off the screen here. Again, Pixie's been in operation for nearly 50 years. The UDO does indicate that daycare centers are a conditional use within the multifamily zoning district. We did do some research and we tried to find if there was a record of a previous conditional use that may have been approved for this property back in the day. We were unable to locate one, and that's likely due to the fact that there have been no significant changes or additions to that property within the last 47, 48 years that it's been operating. So this creates a legally existing non-conforming use, which we've used that term several times tonight. And the applicant is requesting a conditional use simply to remove that non-conforming status. Variety of reasons, no specific reason tonight other than with a non-conforming status, as I mentioned before in the previous docket, insurance and financing, things of that nature could be impacted by a non-conforming status. If the building were to burn more than 50% or be destroyed more than 50% by natural disaster, act of God, it could not be rebuilt as it currently stands. So insurance premiums could be higher because of that. Banks may not loan money for projects. There's a variety of a myriad of different reasons why a non-conforming status is not good for a particular property. So the applicant has submitted a application for conditional use. Again, the evaluation, the staff evaluated the criteria. We did confirm that daycare centers are a conditional use within the multifamily zoning district. The applicant's current facility is not and will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. The applicant does not intend to change the use or the intensity of the use of the property as it currently exists and operates. The applicant's current facility will not impair the use and enjoyment of the other properties in the immediate vicinity or the property values in the neighborhood or zoning district. The continued use of the current facility will not impede or substantially alter the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding properties for uses permitted within the multifamily zoning district. The current and future use is consistent with those that already exist and will not impact the surrounding neighborhoods or properties. All required utilities and transportation infrastructure is already in place. And while the future land use plan identifies this area as mixed-use residential, the neighborhood has long included a mixture of single-family, multifamily homes, and communities. An elementary school was across the street at one point, and then the daycare center for nearly half a century. The continued use as a daycare center does not interfere substantially with the City of Lebanon Comprehensive Plan or the Unified Development Ordinance. So in review of the requested conditional use for the allowance of a daycare center on the subject property within the multifamily zoning district, the City of Lebanon planning staff does recommend approval. Again, happy to answer any questions you may have.
I think we're good to go. The applicant want to step forward and add anything to it?
My name is Tom Whitsitt, and I'm here to represent Pixie, but much to your surprise, perhaps, I don't have very much to add. We adopt and approve and agree with everything that's in your staff report and simply ask you to approve this request since it has been there for a long period of time. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, this is a public meeting. This is open to the public. I'll open it to the public if anybody wants to step forward and address it. Seeing nobody stepping forward, we will close the public end of the hearing and look for a motion.
I move to approve as presented.
Second.
Corey Coots,
Yes.
Chad Kiger.
Yes.
Bruce Polly,
Yes.
Ron Edwards,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Next item is docket number 2341, Cash Wagner and Associates for the Lebanon Community School Corporation. Property is located on the northwest corner of Fordyce Road, and John Bart Road, in Lebanon. The property is zoned institutional and comprised of approximately 18.2 acres.
Hey, Mr. Polly, I think you may have skipped agenda item 2340, 235.
Why do I not have 40? Okay, let's try docket 2340. Gary Ladd for S&C Properties. Property is located 235 Cox Avenue, Lebanon. Zone plan business industrial and comprised of almost 1 acre. It's 0.96 acres.
All right. This one is a little bit longer than the previous ones. We've got a list of variances that are being requested here. The property in question is 235 West Cox Avenue. It's formerly the site of the Bottoms Up Bar and Grill. And if we can pull our aerial up, we'll get you acclimated to where we're at. We have State Road 39 to the east, I-65 to the north, and it's neighbored by the Flying J truck stop. So you can see we have this almost triangle-shaped property here that we're working with. You guys may remember back in December, this did come before you for a variance, which was approved for you for a rear building setback. The parcel is zoned planned business industrial, and our Unified Development Ordinance has some pretty significant setback standards for the PBI zoning district, and it just wasn't physically possible with the shape of this property. So you did approve a rear building setback variance on December 5th. After review of the applicant presented the intent to construct an expansion or an addition to the existing building, and in review of the proposal and working with the applicant, we determined that a series of variance requests were required of this particular parcel simply because of the shape and the location of it. So I'm going to kind of walk through some of this, and these are a little bit challenging to see. This is a site plan that was submitted by the applicant. Here along the southern portion is the existing building. To the north is the proposed expansion that the applicant intends to build for additional storage use, so office space within the existing building and expanding with the addition here. I will say that the existing building has undergone significant remodel. I think it was torn down even further than the studs in some places, but completely gutted, new joists, new walls, new floors, everything on the inside. We've been very happy because this particular parcel was under an unsafe order by our planning department with the previous owner. The applicant was able to obtain this and has worked diligently to improve it, and staff is really excited about the potential that this particular property holds simply because of what it was before and what it will potentially become. As you can see also on this, it's not color, but there's a significant amount of landscaping that's being proposed on this. So we have a buffer between the building and the Flying J truck stop parking lot. We have building-based landscaping all along both buildings, and then we have significant landscaping around the front, the flagpole, and also interior parking lot landscape islands. So a significant amount of landscaping is being proposed, but because of its location, we'll have one of the variances coming up here that because of the size and shape, we weren't able to get all of the landscaping that's required. But we'll touch on that as we kind of walk through. I did want to pull up a couple of renderings just so you can kind of see as we're walking through these. So this is what the applicant's proposing on the exterior elevations. We're looking at a variety of different materials from a brick, wood siding, vertical metal, fiber cement, asphalt shingle roof. So you can see there is a great amount of texture and design that's been put into these particular buildings and the remodel. So the remodel is this building in the forefront here. The existing building is kind of in the background there. So you'll see the primary entrance is being improved. So a significant improvement to what the previous structure looked like. Scroll back up to our site plan here, and then we'll just start kind of walking through each of these variances that's been requested here. So the first variance is on dumpster screening. The dumpster is located down here in the southwest corner of the property. The UDO requires that all dumpster enclosures be situated in such that the container is not visible at an angle greater than 45 degrees from an adjacent public road. The applicant is requesting relief from this requirement to allow a dumpster that faces Cox Avenue. So Cox Avenue is the road that runs parallel to I-65. It's a reasonably untraveled road, except for the people that are specifically heading towards this particular site. So in review of the statutory criteria, I will indicate that staff did evaluate all three of the statutory criteria, and I won't walk through each of them simply because we've got quite a few variances on here. But one thing that I did want to point out in regards to the dumpster is it is located on the southwest portion of the building towards the back of the property, and will be partially screened by the trees and the landscaping that are located along there. In addition, the privacy fence along the exterior of the property will help screen it and provide screening along Cox Avenue. So staff did not have an issue with recommending approval of this particular variance request of the dumpster screening, or better yet, the dumpster orientation facing Cox Avenue. The next variance is pedestrian facilities. The UDO requires a sidewalk on any property frontage adjacent to a public or private street. The applicant's requesting relief from this requirement in order to eliminate the sidewalk along Cox Avenue. Staff, in the staff report, for the record, we did indicate that we did review all the statutory criteria. And while sidewalks, we do agree, are safer for pedestrians, this particular subject property is in a location that sees very, very little pedestrian activity, and there are no other sidewalks in the vicinity. No other neighboring properties have sidewalks for this to connect to. So the installation of the sidewalk would have no material benefit to the property. So the City of Planning staff does recommend approval of the variance request on the pedestrian facilities. The next variance will apply to the expansion or the addition of the building. We have a loading berth that is situated on the front of the addition. I'll scroll back down so you can see that a little bit better. Zoom in. So you can see the expansion building addition is here in front of us, and we do have a loading berth. The UDO requires that all loading berths and overhead doors shall face to the rear of a building and shall be screened from view with an opaque wall. The applicant's requesting relief from this requirement to allow the overhead door to face Cox Avenue. And again, staff did evaluate the statutory criteria, and the proposed landscaping around the perimeter of the north parking lot will help a lot to view screen the view of the overhead door from Cox Avenue and minimize any potential impact. But also because of the lot size and the configuration, the existing location of the building in relation to the rear property line, which you've already provided a variance on, understanding that there was not enough room on the site, to put it in the back of the building and maintain proper vehicle access to that overhead door would be impractical to attempt to impose on the applicant to move the building and create some sort of drive aisle within the 20 feet, I believe, of rear setback that is behind the existing structure. So staff does recommend approval of the development standard variance request to permit relief from the loading berth requirement of the Unified Development Ordinance.
Real quick, just to confirm,
Sure.
that's not a dock, correct? It's ground level?
Correct, it is
Overhead
ground level
door.
and just an overhead door. The next variance is front setback. And again, this applies because it is zoned planned business industrial. The UDO requires a front building setback of 50 feet. If we were to require the 50-foot setback, it would render this site, this particular parcel, pretty much undevelopable, other than maybe a small structure, but again, we probably wouldn't meet the height and size requirements of the zoning district. So the applicant has requested relief from the 50-foot setback to allow a 34-foot setback. And again, that's from the existing edge of the building to the Cox Avenue right-of-way. For the record, the staff did evaluate the statutory criteria. The existing building maintains a reasonably significant setback of 34 feet from Cox Avenue. The building will maintain the same setback as it currently does, and then they'll have the significant rehabilitation of the exterior of the property, which should positively impact the surrounding areas. And then lastly, given the proposed expansion of the current building, the UDO will require the entire site to meet the current standards. This would require the existing building with a 34 front setback, try that again, 34-foot front setback to be moved in such a manner to meet the 50-foot setback or removed entirely and starting over with a new structure. So with the review of the statutory criteria, planning staff does recommend approval of the development standard variance request to permit relief from the front setback requirement of the UDO. Variance request number 5 is minimum building height. UDO requires all buildings in the overlay district, meaning the interstate overlay district, to have a minimum building height of 20 feet. The applicant's requesting relief from this requirement to allow a building height of 19.5 feet. So we're asking for a variance of 6 inches tonight.
You couldn't get 6 more inches.
Well, when we talk about that in review of the statutory criteria, the applicant's redesign of the existing structure to better meet the material requirements of the overlay. So the interstate overlay does have those design standards, those enhanced design standards that, as I mentioned before, the brick, the metal siding, the vertical or the wood siding, all the different variations of fiber cement board. Because of the scale of the building, the structure would begin to look out of scale if they were to artificially add height just to meet this particular requirement. So in review of the statutory criteria for the record, the planning staff does recommend approval of the variance request to permit relief from the minimum building height requirement of the UDO. The next variance is on lot plantings, and this applies to the landscaping on the property. The UDO requires 1 tree to be planted for every 1,000 square feet of yard area, in addition to the required parking lot and building-based landscaping. So the applicant's requesting relief from the lot plantings requirement. If we look here, we have, I don't want to say a substantial amount of yard space, but there is yard space along here. But because of the small size and shape of the property, with the landscaping that's already being proposed to add additional trees to the open yard areas, would be a bit significant and create a significant hardship to the particular property owner based on the landscaping standards that they're already meeting. So we did review the statutory criteria. The applicants proposed an aesthetically pleasing landscape plan that represents both significant improvements over the previous current, or the property's current condition, and should positively impact the surrounding areas. And again, the strict application of the terms of the UDO would result in practical difficulties because of the restricted lot size and configuration. The need for dry detention is there. There's extremely limited space to add any additional landscaping than what's being proposed already. So planning staff does recommend approval of the development standard variance to permit relief from the lot planting requirement of the UDO. Along the same lines, the next variance does apply to landscaping as well, and it's the interstate corridor buffer. The interstate corridor overlay district requires a minimum 30-foot landscape buffer on the frontage adjacent to the interstate. This buffer is in addition to any other landscaping and setback yards that are required on the site. Due to the site limitations, the applicant is requesting relief from this particular requirement. For the record, staff did review the statutory criteria and does find that the request does meet those statutory requirements. The proposed building and site improvements represent a significant improvement already than the current conditions currently have, and will have a positive impact on the surrounding properties. In addition, the proposed landscape plantings along Cox Avenue frontage may not meet the letter of the buffer standards, but will provide an aesthetically pleasing frontage as you're driving along I-65 and/or Cox Avenue. In the strict terms of the strictly applying the terms of the UDO would result in practical difficulties, as I mentioned. In order to meet the interstate corridor buffer, the building setback requirements, the building's overall setback would have to be 80 feet, essentially rendering the property useless and restricting the size and configuration. So City of Lebanon planning staff does recommend approval of the development standard variance request to permit relief from the interstate corridor buffer requirement of the UDO. And lastly, variance number 8 is flagpole height. The UDO standards for exempt signs indicate that flags, such as United States flags, shall not be flown from a pole the top of which is more than 30 feet in height. The applicant is requesting relief from this requirement to allow a flagpole 60 feet in height. In review of the statutory criteria, the relief poses no imminent threat to the public health, safety, general welfare of the community. The requested variance for the relief of the flagpole will not affect the use or value of the properties adjacent in a substantially adverse manner. The flagpole is not in a location that would have a direct impact on neighboring properties and is of scale appropriate for its location along Interstate 65. And lastly, the strict application of the terms of the UDO would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. While there are many locations within the city where this height may be out of scale, a 60-foot flagpole, because of the subject property being located along the interstate where passersby are further away, moving at higher speeds, the scale of the proposed flagpole is appropriate. And I will, and the applicant, may speak on this a little bit more, but is a member of the electrical union in Indianapolis and is intending to potentially create a Christmas tree-like effect during the holidays utilizing this pole. So that's one of the other uses besides flying the United States flag, could offer some additional flair to the property along Interstate 65. So in review of the statutory criteria for this particular variance request, the City of Lebanon planning staff does recommend approval of the development standard variance to permit relief from the flagpole height requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance. And I know I ran through all 8 of those very quickly, so I'm happy to go back and touch on any of them in more detail or answer any questions that anybody has.
Okay, I have a couple questions. A couple comments.
Sure.
On request number 2, the pedestrian sidewalk, and you made the comment, well, the street, Cox Avenue, doesn't really go anywhere, but 20 years, maybe it will. I don't know.
There's a railroad there.
Pardon me?
The railroad really blocks off a lot of that.
Well, that's,
One point I might make on that, Mr. Pauly, and it's not confirmed yet, but NDOT has made some comments, and maybe our city engineer may be able to speak a little bit more fluidly on this, but the entrance off of State Road 39 onto Cox Avenue, NDOT has made comments that could potentially be closed to traffic. So that could be sectioned off because of its proximity to the interstate interchanges. So to create pedestrian connectivity to what would be the south, to an entrance that may no longer exist in the near future, it is a requirement that the city is not willing to make on the applicant to have them create a sidewalk that led to really nowhere, to a dead end. I don't know, if, Kevin, if you...
Does the right-of-way exist if in the future, like Mr. Pauly said, if that were to become the case, does the right-of-way exist where the city would have access, potentially, or a developer of an adjacent property?
A couple of things that Matt summarized what we've heard from the state very well, and I think given the development of the Fieldhouse area, we're probably going to see that road closure happen sooner rather than later. Not unlike the closure at State Road 32 that used to go back to the old McDonald's site and the truck stop, the McClure station back there. They closed off that, and you now go around through Garofalo Boulevard. So similarly, this will be closed. There is another developer-led project in the vacant fields north of the Flying J. I actually got confirmation from the developer last week. They intend to start construction later this summer. And that would extend the Flying J entrance drive up and connect through their site to Cox Avenue, providing a new alternate access point for this site. So that's how that will end up the details
We're
are
not
yet to
gonna
be
make them
determined.
zip line into their flagpole or
No.
anything crazy.
They will not, NDOT will not eliminate access until there is an alternate one. But that will happen in the relatively short term. I guess I can't speak to, perhaps Matt can, if what right-of-ways were shown or if there are right-of-way dedications. But yes, that would be appropriate. If that's not on there, that we make sure that appropriate right-of-way dedications are made so that at some point in the future, we could widen, expand, build sidewalks, whatever other infrastructure might be needed.
Got one more question on variance number 4. The front setback, do you know how far the door, the loading dock door is from Cox Avenue?
The applicant may have that, I don't have, I'm sorry, I say that, bear with me a moment, let me see if I can open the plans here and,
The plans have a 50-foot setback, and it's well behind that. Because the corner of the new addition looks like it meets the 50-foot setback, if I'm reading
yes,
that properly.
yes, the corner of the new addition, I can zoom in here.
Yeah.
So as we can see, the addition is here. We have a 50.77-foot setback to this point. And if we just add, 37 feet of parking plus additional 20 feet, I mean, we're already at 57 feet just to the edge of the parking, and that's not,
Far enough for me.
okay,
I was just thinking of like a 53-foot semi backing up there.
sure. And the applicant did indicate that this would be merely box trucks that would be making deliveries there, more than likely not fully loaded semi-tractor trailers. So they've designed it essentially so that the site can be maneuvered by a box truck, which was where most of the deliveries would come from.
Anybody else have any other questions? Thank you.
Welcome.
Does the applicant want to add anything?
My name's Gary Ladd with Ladd Engineering, and with me is Shane Connor, who's the owner of this property. I just wanted to indicate that the reason for all the variances is basically, in a nutshell, this property is really, really small, and it was really hard to cram what we did on it. But in the end, I think it's really going to be a betterment to the area. This building is really going to look a lot better than what's been there in the past, and I've been honored to be able to work on this project, so.
I really have nothing else to add to it, but as you guys know, by the renderings of it, I've spent a lot of money just on trying to get all these going through. But with the architecture that I've been, that I hired, the architectural firm with Gary, with everything I've done to it, the whole idea with this is to move my company there because of the location, all the traffic. So, this is the third building I've redone in Lebanon, and if you've ever looked at any of them, they've all turned out really well. But the 60-foot flagpole, that's important to me, just because I am a proud member of the IBEW, and we're a NECA contractor, and we are in charge of making sure the circle of lights get taken care of. So one of the things that I just thought would be neat in that little area is to be able to create that large cone Christmas tree. And, I am a veteran, both my kids are veterans, and, I'm a proud American. And that's another reason why I'd like to see it, because when I drive down 65 going to Alabama on our family vacation, you can see a lot of tall flagpoles with the American flag flying, and I'm just proud to be American, and that's the reason for the flagpole. So everything else I think is pretty cut and dry. Very unique situation. Somebody did make a 6-inch comment, but I asked the exact same question, and I got the exact same result. It's all about making it proportional, and that 6 inches could really add a lot of more money to the situation as well. So anyway, I appreciate your time.
Keep going.
Shane, I have a question for you about your flag.
Yes, sir.
How big of a flag are you going to fly on that 6?
On the website that I was looking at, there is a flag that's it all goes with how tall your mast is and all that, and it's going to be the one that they recommend that's directly
10 by
proportional.
15 or something like that?
Something like that. I mean, it's not going to be the one that's 30 feet long that's waving in the air, but it's going to be directly proportional, and it will just be an American flag.
And will you fly it at night?
At night? Oh, absolutely.
Will you light it up?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
He's a veteran. He knows
Yes.
the rules.
Yes.
Just making sure.
I did just want to point out, I think soldiers and sailors is only 132 feet. If you're going halfway there.
Hey, you were complaining about 6 inches.
Okay, thank you. Well, is there any other questions? No. Thank you. There's a public meeting. We'll open it to the public if anybody from the audience wants to step forward and say anything. We'll close the public end of the meeting. I think since there are 8 variances requests, we ought to do these one at a time, Kelly?
That sounds
So,
terrible.
I guess, how do we want to do that?
I do all of them.
Do them as a bundle.
We'll do them all 8? Okay.
Yeah, the motion could be per staff recommendation, correct? So,
Yeah.
For clarification, staff did not assign any conditions to any of these
No,
approvals,
but-
so
Right.
all 8 were recommended for approval by planning staff, so there weren't any additional conditions to any of them.
okay.
Want to take them all 8 at once, then I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve docket 23-40 as written.
Second.
Kelly?
Corey Koontz,
Yes.
Chad Kiger,
Yes.
Bruce Polly,
No, but because of the sidewalk is the only reason I'm voting no.
Ron Edwards,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Okay, now we're to docket number 2341, Cash Wagner and Associates for the Lebanon Community Schools. Property is located at the northwest corner of Fordyce Road and John Bart Road in Lebanon. The property is zoned institutional and comprised of 18.2 acres.
Very good. You guys have probably seen these gentlemen, the applicants that are here tonight, a few other times in the last few months. Lebanon Community Schools have a lot of projects going on at Harney, Perryworth, the softball field, and now what they're proposing is the construction of a new elementary school. If we pull up the site plan, we'll get you acclimated to where we're at and kind of walk through what they have going on. So the parcel in question, the subject property is along at the intersection of John Bart Road and Fordyce Road, just on the east side of town, northeast side of town. The middle school is just off the screen to the northwest here. So the applicant is proposing a approximately 103,000 square foot elementary school with appropriate parking and drive aisles and parent pickup and drop-off lanes. Staff has reviewed the development plan and the site. The building plan meets the requirement, most of the building plan meets the requirements of the UDO. However, there were a few variances that are necessary in order to meet the specific project needs. I'm gonna scroll down a page here and, sorry, this is a big file, so it takes a moment. Even more of a moment. So as we can see here, in the gray is the proposed school. To the west is bus parking as well as event parking. And then the south and eastern side are parent and staff parking lots. If I zoom out a little further, try to get over here to a drive aisle is being proposed, and we'll see this a little bit better. A north-south drive aisle that runs parallel to John Bart Road actually will be installed that will go to the north and actually connect to County Road 150 that runs east-west and meets at John Bart. So that would create an intersection up on that northeast corner of the parcel. So there'll be went too fast. So here's kind of a color rendering of the site. As you can see, the building is in the peach-orange color. The parking, bus parking along the western side, and you can kind of see the lane for the pickup and drop-off for the parents. They're indicating it's wide enough for 3 lanes, so you'd have 2 lanes of, let's say during drop-off, 2 lanes of incoming traffic that would then pick up the kids on this eastern side of the school, and then as the parents exited, they could either exit south to Fordyce Road or exit back up the access road up to 150 that intersects with John Bart Road and could head to the north. Again, they're proposing hard and soft playgrounds in this area and appropriate landscaping, but we do have some variances that apply to landscaping in the parking, and we'll kind of walk through these 4 variance requests that they have here tonight. The first variance that is being proposed is parking area curbing. And this is something that, if you remember from Harney and Perry Worth, they had these same variance requests. UDO requires all parking and drive areas for non-residential uses to be completely curbed. The applicant's requesting relief from this standard to allow the proposed new elementary school to sheet drain into the adjacent detention swales. So as you'll see around the property, we have at least 4 detention areas, 1 to the west, 2 to the south, and then I don't think it shows, but there's another one on the northeast corner of the subject property. Staff did evaluate the statutory criteria. The applicant's proposing to sheet drain the area to the adjacent swales, so there'll be no drainage issues that would impact neighboring properties. Actually, in fact, drainage on the site will be improved. As many of you may know, this site was notorious for holding water on heavy rains, as well as snow melts, and at times flooding across John Bart Road. With the installation of the new detention systems and the proposed drainage, the sheet drainage here, the stormwater will appropriately drain at a consistent rate that will not flood neighboring properties, nor would it flood over John Bart Road. The site has been engineered to accommodate all the stormwater runoff onto the site on the detention areas and the basins, and then again released at appropriate rates into the swales and ditches in the area. The drainage improvements will have no negative impact on surrounding properties. And then the strict application of the terms of the UDO would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Parking area curbing creates the need for significant investment in underground stormwater systems. The entire site can be better served by sheet draining, again, into those detention and swale systems that are on the site. So staff, in review of the recommendation, or in review of that variance request, staff does recommend approval of the development standard variance request to permit relief from the parking curb requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance. The next variance request has to do with landscaping, and let me get down to the landscape rendering here. So I will point out, on the west side here, we do have the detention basin. It does appear as if there's some soccer fields. Those are just placeholders. I don't believe the applicant currently has any intent to place athletic fields in this detention area, simply because it's designed to catch the rain and stormwater runoff. So it would make sense to invest money in an athletic field where it could potentially be wet a significant portion of the year collecting that rainfall. But when we're talking about the landscaping requirements, the first variance request, the parking lot interior landscaping, the UDO requires that all parking areas for non-residential uses shall include a minimum of 5% of interior landscaping. And as we look along the site here, we can see there are areas that they do propose interior landscaping in several locations, but it doesn't quite meet the 5% requirement. So they are requesting relief from that. And we talked about this with Harney and Perryworth, and we actually talk a lot about it with projects out in the business park. Just the parking lot islands or interior landscaping do sometimes create a maneuvering issue when you're talking about larger vehicles such as buses with snow removal and just safe maneuvering around the property. Having a reduction in the interior landscaping would have no material impact on the surrounding properties. The strict application of the terms of UDO would result in practical difficulties. Again, higher traffic areas, especially ones with larger vehicles like buses, are susceptible to damage because of the constant vehicle maneuvering and have the potential to restrict movement on the site. So in review of the statutory criteria, planning staff does recommend approval of the development standard variance request to permit relief from the parking lot interior landscaping requirement of the UDO. And along the same lines, the next variance is parking lot perimeter landscaping. The UDO requires all parking areas to include parking lot perimeter landscaping. As we can see around on the site here, we can see the green along a good portion of the parking lot perimeters. The applicant is proposing to eliminate some of the perimeter landscaping requirements, mainly for a couple of reasons. One is for the public health and safety, allowing more visibility for those drivers in the area, for the kids that may be walking to and from school, and allowing parents and bus drivers to be able to see more readily around the parking lots. But then also I scroll back up, and I won't right now, but I will in a moment. To the north of this parking area is proposed additional parking or parking lot expansion in the future. There goes the red here. So in the red, these are proposed potential parking lot expansions. So to require them to plant landscaping that would be in those areas would create an undue hardship because the landscaping could eventually have to be torn out to allow for these parking expansions. So again, staff did evaluate the statutory criteria for the parking lot perimeter landscaping. As I did show, they do meet parking lot perimeter landscaping along the southern and eastern portions of the parking lots, which are the ones that abut the public streets, as well as abut the residential properties that are along Fordyce and along John Bart. So there is the buffer and the screening of the parking areas from the neighboring residential properties. So planning staff does recommend approval of the variance request to allow the relief from parking lot perimeter landscaping requirements. And then the last variance request, again, falls in line with landscaping, and that is the lot plantings. And we discussed this on the last application. The UDO requires additional landscape plantings in yard areas of properties not covered with structures, parking areas, or other hard surfaces. Based on the institutional zoning classification, this particular property is required to plant one additional broadleaf, deciduous, or evergreen tree for every 1,000 square feet of yard area. So the applicant's requesting relief from that. In the statutory criteria and review, relief from this would pose no imminent threat to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. The applicant is proposing to provide landscaping on areas abutting all the street frontages as well as the neighboring residential properties, and those will provide a buffer from the proposed development. And then when we talk about the strict application, the terms of the UDO would create practical difficulties. We did the math. It's an 18.2 acre site. We're estimating approximately 75% of it is covered with buildings, parking areas, or drive aisles. So if we were to strictly enforce the terms of the UDO, the applicant would require to plant approximately 200 additional trees on the subject property, which is a significant number of trees, and it's impractical to create this undue hardship upon the property owner. So in review of the statutory criteria, the City of Lebanon planning staff does recommend approval of the development standard variance request to permit relief from the lot planting requirement of the Unified Development Ordinance. And again, I know I ran through those kind of quickly, so happy to touch on any of them if you have specific questions on any of them or questions in general.
Don't think so at this time. Thank you. Would the applicant care to add to any of this?
Yeah, my name is Dale Wagner. I'm with Gibraltar Design, the architect, and on behalf of Lebanon Community School Corporation, it's a pleasure to be up here. Have civil engineer Nathan Wagner, and even though we both have Wagner, we're not related, so, I don't have a lot to add. It's just, we're excited about the building. I know Lebanon Schools excited about the building as well. I mean, it's going to be a really nice building on this site. I mean, you're going to see the next time when we're back in June 20th, which would be for the Plan Commission hearing, we'll have renderings and you get to see the images. But it's a mixture, brick and some metal panel and things like that. So very nice entrance here. I think it's going to be very pleasing to the community. So, we agree with everything that the staff has made comment-wise in terms of the variance, and we just seek for your approval. Answer any questions if you have them.
I know at one point there was, there's this really pretty corner of the road up there off of 150 and to that new road. At one point there was conversation about connecting that over to the middle school. Is that still an opportunity? Is that off the table?
It would be an opportunity, but not a part of this project right now. So
Okay.
It's certainly something that the school corporation, along with the city, I think will continue to discuss.
Perfect.
Piggybacking on that, is there a reason that corner of the parcel was chosen for the school as opposed to closer to the middle school? Seems like you could take advantage of the maintenance shed and the existing road infrastructure to bring traffic into left to the middle school, right to the new elementary.
Yes, as you well know, the city's going to improve Fordyce Road. That's underway right now, or planning it right now. There is other plans for the property just north. I mean, you saw on the rendering a while ago, 20 acres. There's about another 20 acres, and then there's additional that would be on the other side that you referenced, that potential future road. So yes, the school corporation does have some other thoughts, but those haven't really been formalized yet in terms of what that would be. But we tried to keep as much of that property to the north flexible for future use by the district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll open it to the public. Anybody that has any questions or concerns? One thing I would like to add, though, whether you're for the school or not for the school, we're here to talk about these 4 variances only. So I just wanted to put that out there. We'll open this for a public hearing right now, if anybody cares to step forward. Okay, we'll close the public end of the hearing. Look for a motion.
I make a motion that we would approve the 4 development standard variances in regards to docket 23-41.
I'll second.
Ray Coontz,
Yes.
Chad Kiger,
Yes.
Bruce Polly,
Yes.
Ron Edwards,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Okay, all 4 variances passed. Good luck. Got 2 more. Docket 2342, Dylan Reynolds, Space Co. for the Lebanon Hotel Group. The property is located at 1527 West South Street in Lebanon. The property is zoned planned unit development as within the thoroughfare overlay and interstate district and comprises of 1.4 acres, 1.04 acres, I'm sorry. The subject lot configuration is approximately 280 feet by 200 feet deep.
Very good. Moving to the west side of town now. I'm not sure if we've been out this way yet tonight on our seventh of 8 docket items. Pull up the screen. Oh, you got the screen up already? Knew what I was going to ask. Where we're at, we are in the Gateway Marketplace area of town. State Road 32 running along the north side, Interstate 65 along the west. This is Gateway Avenue, Burger King, the Moe's, the new Dunkin' Donuts, all to the east of this property. The applicant is proposing to build an approximately 5,800 square foot standalone restaurant called Bar Louie, a family-friendly sit-down restaurant, along with the associated parking for that restaurant, and that will be tied in as part of a larger development with a Fairfield Inn hotel that would be situated just to the south of the Bar Louie restaurant. So the restaurant will be on this northern parcel, the hotel on the southern parcel. They will have some shared parking, but they will not be connected per se. They will be two different structures. What we found, because this property sits within the thoroughfare overlay district, we found that the building orientation didn't quite fit the exact requirements of the UDO. When we're talking about building orientation, the UDO requires that in the thoroughfare overlay district, the main entrance of a structure must face the street of highest classification. And again, it's not shall look like a front facade, but it must face the street of highest classification, which in this case would be State Road 32. The applicant is proposing an orientation of the building, and I'll scroll down here in a minute to show you the elevation, that faces Gateway Avenue, which there will not be any entrances to this property off of State Road 32. It will be off of Gateway Avenue. So it made sense from the design and architectural standpoint to actually have the main entrance off of Gateway versus having it facing State Road 32 and people having to drive around to get to the front of the building. I'm going to scroll down here and give you an overall site layout. So as you can see here, we have State Road 32 to the north, Gateway Avenue. The proposed restaurant is here in the front on the northern portion. Again, the Fairfield Inn, which did receive Plan Commission approval, development plan approval last month, will be to the south here. So the variance request on building orientation, the front of the building is proposed to face Gateway Avenue, which if we're looking here, this is the east side of the building, which will be the main entrance. And then this over here is the north side of the building, which would be facing South Street or State Road 32. Originally, this was just a single pedestrian door, kind of a fire door with no real architectural standards to it at all. When staff realized that the UDO said must face versus should present a front-like facade, we worked with the applicant, and the applicant was very responsive and created a front-like facade on this northern elevation. So they added this parapet wall to the roof line. They added glass and color and architectural design to this northern elevation. Even though this isn't the main entrance, it does give the appearance of a main entrance. So the main entrance would still remain along Gateway Avenue, but we do have a front-like facade that does face the thoroughfare, which is State Road 32. So in review, the development standard request, the variance request, is for building orientation. Staff did review the statutory criteria. This relief will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, general welfare of the community. The proposed restaurant structure will meet all setbacks and will be constructed to meet all applicable building code requirements, both state and federal. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The building's being constructed to the highest quality materials. The elevation South Street has been upgraded, as I mentioned, such that the side entrance has the same architectural details as the main entrance does, giving it a front-like facade. And this will ensure that the main entrance facade and the facade facing South Street have similar characteristics. So again, the one facing South Street will not be the main entrance, but it will give a front-like facade appearance. And in the strict application of the terms of the UDO would result in practical difficulties. While it is physically possible for the building to be rotated to orient to the main street of highest classification, which would be South Street, there's no vehicular access, as I mentioned, off of South Street, meaning the main entrance would no longer be the primary access on Gateway Avenue. So the current configuration of the main building entrance facing the primary access point along Gateway would provide for a more efficient flow of vehicle traffic, both vehicle and pedestrian traffic to the main entrance. So in review of those criteria, City of Lebanon Planning staff does recommend approval of the development standard variance request to permit relief from the building orientation requirement of the UDO. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Not at this time. Would the applicant step forward?
Hi, Dylan Reynolds with Space Co., the civil engineer on the project. Yeah, just reiterating what Matt had said, we feel with the intent of the ordinance of the main entrance facing the highest classification is because the front entrance usually gets the most curb appeal and look. So based on staff recommendations and working with Matt and Ben as his team, we made a huge upgrade to the side of the building facing South Street so that it still has that same curb appeal as the main entrance. Happy to answer any questions.
In terms of the side facing the interstate, it's fairly blank on the rendering. Are you guys going to have signage or anything else in that area?
As far as east of I don't know if we can bring this back up to the screen and zoom in a little.
So back.
So this area?
No, so that would be the
West
side.
facing.
Sure, west facing.
Oh, the west facing side?
Yeah, interstate facing.
Yeah, I don't know. Are they all down here?
Yeah, so like that side there, that's mostly plain.
Yeah, I mean, what you're seeing is the current design for that face, but I think it still meets all that applicable.
Right, I was just
Yeah.
curious, do you have any signage proposed back there at all?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
I'm curious, you've got parking all the way around the building, except for the southern facing side?
Yes.
Why does it matter where the front entrance is?
I think the intention is that because it's kind of a long shape along the interstate, it works in conjunction with the entrance to the hotel, so to have two buildings that
Closer
kind
to
of,
the hotel?
yeah, work together with facing opposite directions is a little awkward. And as well as pedestrian access all comes from Gateway Avenue. It makes sense to have the main entrance closest to Gateway, since the sidewalk is there as well.
Like you're missing an opportunity not to build a facade on the interstates, that west-facing side.
I mean, you're so good at them. You've
Seems
got
like-
two already.
Seems like a cheap billboard to me.
All the way around, yeah. If I was an architect, I'd speak to that, but I'm the engineer, so I will hold my tongue.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Public meeting, we will open it to the public if anybody cares to step forward and discuss it. Nobody stepping forward, we will close that into the public meeting and look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the development standard variance request to permit relief from the building orientation.
Second.
Kelly?
Corey Coots,
Yes.
Chad Kiger,
Yes.
Bruce Polly,
Yes.
Ron Edwards,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Carries. Congratulations. Good luck. Okay, we're down to Brad Myers of Myers Companies Limited. Property is located at 322 South Lebanon Street, Lebanon. Property is approximately 1.38 acres and currently zoned neighborhood business and within the thoroughfare overlay district.
All right, on the last one here, actually closer to home than where we are. If we had windows in the back of the room, you'd be able to see this property. If we could pull up the site plan, the subject property that we're referencing is along North Lebanon Street, where it formerly the Family Video Building, and currently where Jimmy John's is located. So I think many of you are familiar with that particular structure. The applicant is proposing to develop about 1,500 square feet on the southern end of the vacant Family Video portion of the building to install a drive-through restaurant. So this would be a restaurant that they would install a drive-up window, but would also have carry-out available. So they'd be installing a pedestrian door on that southeastern corner of the building. Can kind of scroll down here to give you an idea. So this is the existing building. Jimmy John's is on the northern end, and then the applicant's proposing remodeling, as I mentioned, about 1,500 square feet of the southern portion. That would leave some space in the middle for potentially a future third tenant in that particular structure should the property owner need. But we're here tonight to discuss this drive-through restaurant. Drive-through restaurants are a conditional use within the thoroughfare overlay district. They were previously prohibited in the overlay district, but City Council Ordinance 0904, so in 2009, updated the UDO section 6.1.h to make drive-through restaurants a conditional use within the thoroughfare overlay district and the neighborhood business district. So as we have with the other conditional use applications tonight, we did have the statutory criteria. As I mentioned, we've already confirmed that drive-through restaurants are a conditional use within the neighborhood business zoning district, and Council Ordinance 0904 did create conditional use for drive-throughs in the thoroughfare overlay district. The established maintenance or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. Excuse me. A drive-through restaurant will not be detrimental to any of those things. The applicant's proposed project will not impair the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity or the property values in the neighborhood or the zoning district. The property use is on an existing commercial corridor that already contains a mix of commercial uses, including other restaurants and other drive-through uses. The fourth criteria, the proposed development will not impede or substantially alter the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding properties. The proposed use is a reuse of a portion of an existing commercial building. Access to the site will be updated for proper traffic flow and other cosmetic improvements are planned, and we'll kind of touch on those as we get into the conditions here. The way the site will be used will not impact surrounding properties in a substantially adverse manner. And then the last criteria, the reuse of this site for the proposed drive-through restaurant is not in conflict with the City of Lebanon Comprehensive Plan or the Unified Development Ordinance. The comprehensive plan does identify this entire corridor as appropriate for commercial uses. So in review of the requested conditional use application for a drive-through restaurant use in the thoroughfare overlay district, Lebanon Planning staff does recommend approval subject to the following three conditions. The first condition is that any dumpster placed on the site shall include a dumpster enclosure meeting the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance. And we mention that because the dumpster currently exists right here on the southern portion of the building. Because that will now become drive-through, the dumpster will be relocated to a couple parking spaces on the southern end. So we want to ensure that that is properly screened on all three sides with a proper gate on the northern side. The second condition that staff would like to apply to the approval is that the applicant install parking lot perimeter landscaping along the eastern side of the parking lot adjacent to Lebanon Street, meeting the perimeter landscape requirements of UDO section 7.8.J.3. So again, we're talking about the parking lot perimeter along the eastern side that abuts Lebanon Street. Planning staff would like to see the parking lot perimeter landscaping installed along there to create a buffer between the parking lot and the thoroughfare. And then the third condition is that the applicant install one-way drive or do not enter signage and/or pavement markings on both the north and south sides of the building to ensure proper traffic flow to both the existing Jimmy John's use and the proposed drive-through use. If you're familiar with this site, as you head along the north side, you have the drive-through lane for Jimmy John's, and then an exit lane that heads out to Southwest Street along the western portion. What we are proposing is that the applicant create almost a circular motion where the northern drive remains one way to the west, while the southern drive would remain one way, or would be created one way to the east. So anybody that would be coming to the drive-through could enter off Lebanon Street, would go around the building and enter the drive-through line, or come off West Street directly, or could enter off of Lebanon Street and park and get carry-out from the internal counter. So there will be no indoor seating of this proposed restaurant, so it would just be drive-through carry-out only. So that would be the third condition, is that the appropriate signage and demarcations along the parking lot be installed to direct traffic in the appropriate directions. So those are the three conditions, and again, planning staff does recommend approval of the conditional use for a drive-through restaurant in the Thoroughfare Overlay District, subject to the three conditions.
On your condition number 1, that any dumpster placed on the site, is it a requirement that they have a dumpster?
Yes, commercial uses do require a dumpster.
Okay, where will that be located? Do you know that?
The new location?
Yes.
If we pull our screen back up, I can demonstrate here. Actually, it'd be located right here, where my cursor is, on the southern portion of the parking lot. So there are 2 parking spaces that will be turned into a dumpster enclosure. Currently, there's only 1 dumpster, and it sits kind of right here where the drive-through lane would be, and the enclosure itself has seen better days. So it actually, staff is pretty excited to see that it will be relocating, and a new dumpster enclosure will be installed around the new, I believe, 2 dumpsters to accommodate both the new restaurant and the existing Jimmy John's restaurant.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Matt, do you have adequate space there for the truck to get in and take care of the dumpster?
Yes, yep. The drive aisle is appropriate in size for the trucks to be able to get in there and get those emptied.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would the applicant care to add anything?
Hello, Brad Myers, managing member of Myers Company Limited. We'll be doing business, in this case, at Chicago's Pizza, and hoping to utilize this location. I don't have anything to add, I don't believe. Chicago's Pizza in general is franchises just in Indiana. We specialize just in small towns like Plainfield, Mooresville, Bargersville, Cloverdale, so we're really excited to come to this community if that's allowed to happen. So if you have any questions for me or Ryan here, you can introduce
I'm Ryan.
himself.
I represent the owner of the company. Thanks, Matt. I really don't have much to add. The owner agrees that, agrees to the conditions. The only thing I'd ask is, I'm not sure on timing. Do we need to do all of these landscaping changes, signage, dumpster enclosure prior to them starting any construction, or can we work in conjunction with them? What does that timing look like?
The timing for that would be the same time as the construction. So
Okay.
all of that can happen
Gotcha.
simultaneously
Okay.
with the remodel and the development plan as part of the project.
Fantastic. And then the only other thing I would ask is just some guidance on what your landscaping ordinance would require and what type of mediums we use for
How do we
the.
access that UDO?
Yeah, can you email that to me?
That guy.
That's why.
No,
I should just ask him.
Planning staff can provide you guidance on those landscaping requirements, and we can get
Okay.
you a copy of the UDO. It's in your link to the website.
Other than that, I mean, nothing to add. We're excited to move forward with this project. We think Chicago's would be a great addition to this property, and it it would be a nice refresher. I think this property is a little tired looking, and this is a good opportunity to breathe new life into it, and I believe that they'll help actually bring more attention to this building. We'll fill that 4,000 square feet in between pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Matt, this will end up being a similar layout to the buildings in the Gateway Marketplace that have double drive-throughs, correct? Got, I think it's Dunkin' Donuts, and then there's a vacant spot on the west side that has room for a drive-through.
Yeah, yes, it would be similar in nature to that. I think the ones at Gateway Marketplace are a single drive aisle on the opposite side of Dunkin' versus this one where it'd be 2 lanes all the way around the building. So it'd have access all the way around this one. I think the ones in Marketplace may just be a single lane for the pickup window that's being offered on that side, on that northern side, or I'm sorry, the western side of the Dunkin' building.
Okay, this is a public meeting, and open it to the public, open the meeting to the public. Anybody care to step forward and say anything? Seeing most everybody's left, we'll close the public end of the meeting and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use to allow the drive-through restaurant with the following conditions: that any dumpster placed on site include a dumpster enclosure, the applicant install parking lot perimeter landscaping, and that the applicant install one-way do not enter signage.
Second.
Before we take a vote, just one quick question. If we determine that the dumpster cannot be oriented in that fashion, does the UDO prohibit it facing Lebanon Street?
It would. The orientation of the dumpster has to be more than 45 degrees in
Okay,
visibility from.
similar to the one we heard earlier.
Yeah, so
Okay.
if by chance.
So if they have to move it somewhere different, we're ensuring it's going to screen no matter what. and the
Exactly, no,
UDO
we
covers
would ensure proper
frontage.
screening. If for some reason the trash management service comes to empty and there's a line of cars, there's always the possibility, because they're 2 smaller dumpsters, and we've seen it on other tighter sites, where the dumpsters could be
wheel it
pulled
out.
out,
Yeah.
turned, dumped, pushed down, and then manually
Okay.
rolled back into place.
Perfect. Sorry, I just wanted one clarification on that. So, moving on.
Okay, we
Any
have a
missed a second?
motion and a second.
Chad, okay, sorry. Okay, Corey Koontz,
Yes.
Chad Kiger.
Yes.
Bruce Powley,
Yes,
Ron Edwards,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
motion carries. Congratulations, good luck. Look forward to seeing it. Does anybody have anything else tonight? Do you have anything, Matt?
I do not.
Are you sure?
I could probably come up with something, but
Then, if that,
We have a holiday coming up next month. We want to make sure that our meeting, I think July 4th is on a Tuesday, isn't it?
yes, July 4th is on a Tuesday, but the meeting is on the Monday.
The 3rd.
The
Monday,
3rd.
Monday, it's not a holiday, Monday's not a holiday. Just
Observed, I think.
Is,
I think maybe on the 4th, it's just the 4th, I'm thinking.
yeah,
We all know these government employees aren't going to
municipal
work.
government is observing the July 4th holiday on Tuesday, the 4th. Monday is business as usual.
Monday's just an ordinary day, huh?
For us, yes.
Okay, well, you know, the city of Lebanon, they get a lot of days off, so, next meeting will be on Monday, July the 3rd, 7 PM here.
Good.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion, meeting is adjourned.
Voices sound the same.
Tonight, don't we?
Different.
Right.